Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is an update on the Gaiapolis concept and the status of the various implementation projects that are related to Gaiapolis. Now, Gaiapolis is inspired by Sheridan Tatsuno's book, and it's a vision of the city of the future that is innovative, ecological, and human-centered. And we have with us today a number of Tondo Institute fellows, Gaiapolis being a Tondo Institute project. And we have representatives from a partner organization and new friends who might yet be still another partner organization. And not everyone has met each other yet this morning, so it's an opportunity for everyone on the panel to do that. And I am very confident that the abilities of our four organizations that are represented here are going to truly complement each other. So let me introduce the panel, and then we'll start with our opening statements. We have Tondo Fellow Julian Gresser, who has, in terms of in terms of Gaiapolis related activity, has developed a wonderful course on urban and community resilience. A lot of the Gaiapolis effort does focus on climate resilience for cities. And Julian's team has also developed a course platform and a very remarkable artificial intelligence tool for urban wisdom, we might say. Of course, we have Sheridan Tatsuno, who is way back the author of the Technopolis strategy book, and more recently the author of the Gaiapolis strategy and the inspiration for what we're doing here today. He is a Tondo Fellow, and we have Tondo Fellow Sharifuddin Rama, who has founded this videocast series that's now had more than, well, it's had several hundred episodes. Yes, Sharif. And our audience is worldwide, consisting of students, government officials, and university officials. And I think all of those groups will be eager to hear what we've been doing in terms of this. We have Jeff DeCou from the Autonomy Institute in Austin, Texas, oriented to smart infrastructure. And we're grateful to Jeff for reaching out to Tondo, because you saw how the social engineering and social capital capabilities of Tondo are going to complement the hard technology and the data gathering capabilities of the Autonomy Institute. And then we have from EnviroTrace, Trace Kliphaus and Monty Veselinov, and they analyze environmental data. And it was really just this week that Julian said, we have all this capability, but where's the data? And coincidentally, I had just met Trace and Monty at that time. So I look forward to hearing more about what kinds of data they have their hands on, and what I believe they have in AI also for that analysis. I'm very eager to hear more about it, and I'm sure that our audience today is similarly eager. So we have our usual format on these video casts. Everybody will make an approximately 8-minute opening statement about what you're bringing to the party and what you've achieved lately, the great things that you've been doing. And then we'll have a second round for your reactions to a shorter round to conclude, for your reactions to what the others have said and your closing statement. Sheridan, may we begin with you?
Very good. Well, welcome and greetings from San Francisco. After all the COPE sessions have been rather frustrating to watch, I said, we really need to change the world and have cities and bioregions lead because they consume 80% of the energy and emit 70% of the carbon. Therefore, we will win or lose the carbon battle locally. And the good part is not all the regions are compromised by big oil, like the national leaders. So I think, fortunately, C40 and now all the regions and autonomy groups like that are organizing, and it has to be a massive networked organization globally, bottom up, not top down like.
Having some
So
connection
that's
problems,
the
Sheridan.
kind of the vision. I'm working with a medical startup out of Germany. We're using AI avatars and virtual reality for personalized medicine. We just launched the first virtual cities, eco villages in Dubai, University of Tokyo, in Australia. And so one of the things I can do assist you. I As an urban planner, I've been using virtual reality for like AR and VR for like 5 years with Sweden, and the Swedish cities are about 40 years ahead of the US. So what we can do is, instead of trying to learn what Sweden already knows, we could just jumpstart, move 40 years into the future. We use, as you know, most of the big, large enterprise companies, construction, architecture, engineering, factory, industrial design, medicine. We already use virtual reality. It's called digital twins. And so we have the capability. I wrote an article on LinkedIn. I could share it with you later, but how to use VR and AR for climate disaster preparedness, management during the disaster, and recovery by rebuilding the region. So, and right now we don't have the data, and that's why we have Monty and Tracy there. Virtual reality, basically, we just show the disaster, but it's useless unless you have the data to be able to prove what you're doing and be able to anticipate. So I really look forward to the integration of all the data into our virtual worlds, and AI avatars. Now, what I was looking for, one idea I proposed it to PG&E 5 years ago, 2017, is using virtuality for wildfire simulations. And he said, "Yeah, we don't like to talk about fires around here." And I said, "You're going to have a big one." And they said maybe later. And then 6 months later, we had a campfire, killed 85 people, destroyed 18,000 buildings, $30 billion bankruptcy, $15 billion lawsuit from the survivors, and the city spent probably $1 billion, with fire, water, police, housing, all these problems. So the economic impact is massive just on one event. So what we're talking about is, how do we prevent all this disaster from happening? We have the tools, and so the challenge now is for us to put our heads together. And I put out the roadmap, maybe a 30-year roadmap, but really 8 years, like the moon mission. But unless people actually implement on the ground, it's not going to happen. It's just a vision. Now, one thing I can tell you though, cities and regions and even nations can move quickly. When I came out with the Technopolis book, 1986, I gave it to the United Nations representative from China, and he said, "I already read it. It's popular in Beijing. It's in Chinese." I said, "Oh, I didn't know." So I called the publisher and I said, "Did you? Oh, you didn't tell me about it." He goes, "Oh no, it's pirated." And so I talked to the ambassador, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're all the city planners are moving really fast. We're trying, our heavy industries are declining. We need to go tech. So we're using Technopolis at Shanghai, Beijing." And so all the tech industries you see today, they use that as the Bible. Later, the International Association of Science Parks said that 1,000 tech parks were using my book as the guidebook, how to build their Silicon Valley. The different Silicon Valley is bottom up and Pentagon driven, whereas there was national program financed locally, and implemented locally, which is what we're talking about today. So without that bottom up, it's not going to work. I can tell you. So that's really the history, and we don't have much time. I mean, we're already late in climate. So the question is, how fast can we move and learn together, get this thing funded and organized? And I think Julian And then Jeffrey and Tracy, I think you can provide the tools and the methodology, because frankly, I haven't done that. I just watched the cities move 30 years ago, and I was shocked at how fast they move. Austin was one of the movers. Singapore, the French government, 30 technopolises, I used to advise them, and Wales and Scotland. So they all move. So one thing I did learn is that cities and governments can move really fast if they want to. And the key there was investments, foreign investments, and new jobs. And that's the key. And if you can figure that one out, you will get huge groundswell locally. Otherwise, they'll just say, well, it's not, we're not interested. So that's basically what I learned over 30 years.
I'm muting myself here. Okay. Thank you, Sheridan. Jeff. Jeff is in Austin. Take it, Jeff.
Take it off mute. Well, first of all, I truly appreciate being invited to be with the fellows. I have a very personal connection to what really Tando is trying to do again, because it was George Kosmetsky and the efforts in Austin that allowed me at 21 to plug in as an entrepreneur and actually build many businesses over the last 30 years. So now that has given me a very clear picture of why we have to do this again, and why do we have to evolve to a new approach from what Technopolis allowed the city of Austin to begin with. Moving to the concept of Gaiapolis is one that we strongly believe in. The Autonomy Institute, so I've been 30 years in enterprise software, but the Autonomy Institute was established after working with pretty much all the federal agencies, a lot of the states, and a lot of leading industry players. So companies like Raytheon and others. But what became clear is there had to be leadership from an organization that sat between government and industry. And Admiral Inman, which championed MCC and Sematech back in the 80s and 90s, kind of gave me an understanding that of what the Autonomy Institute had to become. We have a pretty boring mission compared to what Tando and everybody else gets to focus on. Infrastructure is something that nobody really cares about unless it's not there. And our entire mission is to establish the 21st century version of infrastructure that's missing. So I can personally attest as a software designer, developer, entrepreneur, we are now at the inflection point. If we don't build this new infrastructure at the edge, we are quickly becoming a third world country. And where China, when we talk about intelligent infrastructure, which we don't have time to get into, but if you understand the concepts of broadband for all, everybody should have connectivity. Everybody wants safe mobility. Everybody wants resilient grids. We want backups to things like, a terrestrial base backup to GPS, which runs 14 of the 16 vital systems in any type of country. All those depend on a new physical infrastructure that has to be adopted. Everybody saw the elephant in the room, and everybody was pretty much ignoring it because they thought it was too great for anybody to take on. We now have actually well over 1,000 people involved, over 300 organizations, and we believe Tando is being a catalyst, or really the Trojan horse that helps establish the coalitions within communities and allows the large infrastructure investors that have $3 trillion to mobilize. It's like in the bank, $3 trillion. But what they can't mobilize on is a wish or a thought. It has to be mobilized on true projects that are mapped out, designed, and supported, not by us. We are all wanting to do amazing things. It has to be supported by political leaders with the will and the leadership to drive it. So our story, once again, boring. We're talking about infrastructure, but the other key point is it was in a meeting that Fred held in Austin. Infrastructure drives everything. If you go back to the Terman, when Silicon Valley was really formed, it was the fact that they engineered the roads, the the water, the electric that sustained growth and allowed the economy valley to occur. In Austin, Kosmetsky's early years, everybody pointed to the reason why Austin was able to grow so quickly and make such an impact is because a new infrastructure was being adopted at that time called the internet. And now we're about to see, well, we're already seeing it. We're seeing things like AI and more robust connectivity and edge computing, come into our cities. And that's going to be the driving force that not only does exciting things for the communities, but allows us as citizens to capture back control of the most important thing in our lives, which is data. I think all of us can attest social media has been probably the most destructive force on the planet. And if we don't capture back data and put the inspired leadership down at the community level, unfortunately, we're kind of experiencing what happens when social media gets away from us. But I'll stop there.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. We would be interested to hear more about what intelligent infrastructure entails. Maybe in our closing round, you can go into that a little bit. Trace and Monty, would you like to weigh in now?
Absolutely, I'd love to. I'll start and let Monty get into the more technical details about what we're doing. But so we have several SBIR research grants, R&D grants, primarily funded through the Department of Energy, and one of them is for a project called Urban AI. And with that project, we are currently doing a lot of customer discovery so that our software that we're developing for this project meets customer needs. So this is very exciting to be here and be hearing what the needs are, and hopefully we can have more detailed conversations. But what we're developing are artificial intelligence, machine learning, science-informed machine learning methods and tools to analyze the urban data. And maybe I'll pass the mic to Monty now to continue with more technical details on that.
Thank you, everyone. Again, very excited to be here and hear ideas which will be critical for how we're moving forward with our work. So just a little bit more background about us. We started 4 years ago. We have been quite successful to get more than 3 million non-dilutive funding from federal agencies for developing R&D, our methods and tools. And our goal is to become more software as a service company where we deploy in the cloud and scale our capabilities. Our primary focus for everything that we're doing is environmental and earth science problems. And the machine learning artificial intelligence tools that we are developing, as Trace mentioned, what is something what we call science informed. So they're not only learning from the data and from the training data sets that are available, but we also incorporate scientific knowledge, subject matter expertise in the training process. So this allows us to build more robust, more transparent, more defensible machine learning models, which can produce predictions with uncertainties, but which can be really evaluated, and subject matter expertise and stakeholders and people who want to make decisions will have their fingerprints more reliable solutions. The other thing which is very important as a background, our project, the Urban AI, which is funded by Department of Energy, is funded in kind of parallel of big effort, and I'm not sure you're aware of Department of Energy. I'll put the link in the chat about this effort. They call it Urban Integrated Field Laboratories. So Department of Energy is funding 4 big projects, which will be at the moment for 5 years, will be multi-million, multi-institution efforts in Baltimore, Chicago, Houston area, and Arizona to collect data, develop digital twins, develop models, collect everything that is needed to plan people how to develop in areas. And the selection of these cities is to cover different type of environments in city development. Unfortunately, things like Austin and Silicon Valley are not here, but it's interesting data. And what we want to do is through machine learning, for example, because Arizona project targets Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff area, to transfer this knowledge, for example, from New Mexico, where we have similar conditions to Arizona, and some of this information through machine learning tools to be able to transfer different locations. So our effort in this urban AI is very much collaborative with these 4 big projects, and we're currently working very close with Arizona State University, which leads the Arizona effort. And they'll be driving cars through the cities, collecting multiple information. They have satellite data, they have weather station, there a lot of data that will come in one place in Phoenix area, and building on top of it, models, digital twins, everything else.
And then I just add one more piece is we're developing a dashboard where people can look at already public available data and analyze it using our tools, or upload data they have that they need analyzed with our tools.
Yeah. So we want to be able to merge proprietary and public data in our analysis, and everything will be in the cloud.
Okay, thank you, Trace and Monty. Now the intelligent infrastructure is going to both generate data and utilize data. So in our second round today, I hope that Jeff and Trace and Monty can both more clearly categorize the kinds of data that you're working with in the data set. Julian, if you're all right, would you care to go next?
Yeah, it's probably an enthusiastic reaction, pulmonary. So I'm very happy to be here, and I've already seen some very interesting connections. I will make a few central points. First is that I wear different hats and play different roles, but one of them, and can everybody hear me audibly? Yeah, okay. One of them is one of the few could be called climate change lawyers in the world, working really at the level of local communities. And I give you one example of how my work interconnects with climate change challenges. I will say that a lot of the themes that have been raised here today all interconnect with different aspects of my work, not only as a lawyer, but I do have a long academic background as well, having taught environmental at Harvard Law School, and a course on infrastructure and industrial policy at MIT during the 80s. But one program that illustrates what I do is actually on Monday, and I put it in the chat, and it has to do with the intersection of the industrial infrastructure, particularly around the electrical infrastructure, and some of the risks that presented by electric fires. And now we have very good data that on the connection between infrastructure and electric fires, both originating from power utilities as well as from small cell and macro towers. And this is of the other themes that were touched on by Sheridan, the importance of accelerating attention to these issues. Other people have mentioned collaboration in a number of instances. And then Monty, just a minute ago, talked about equity. This is an immediate risk to a good number of communities, not in cities, not only in on the West Coast, but throughout the country. And we all understand that risk is a multiple of probability times damage. And it is clear from the data, and a lot of your work on data gathering is going to be reinforce this, that the probabilities of electric fires, such as the PG&E fire that Sheridan mentions, the Caldor fire, Silverado fire, the Woolsey fire, and so forth and so on, which produced over $6 billion of damage, loss of life, huge losses of homes, and not to mention the destruction of the environment, are right at our doorstep. And we're living in a complex age where some communities, such as the community in Tahoe that I represent, have no viable, observable means of exit. And so using simulation, there is some deep concern that 120,000 people will die in the next fire in Tahoe. They've had 3 major wildfires already. And public policy makers are working directly in the opposite direction. Jeffrey, this may be of importance for you to know. For example, in the Congress, there's a bill that just unanimously passed, HR 6492, that will accelerate the deployment of cell towers in the national forests. The national forest is a prime target for all this. This is a national security issue. Local communities surrounded by forests, for example, Tahoe, or in even Los Angeles County, or in Santa Barbara, where I live, where we have the Los Padres fire just above us, Los Padres National Forest just above us. The issue of evacuation is a critical issue, and in some places there's no egress. So this is amenable to legal action before they issue a permit to some of these telecom companies, which are clearly in violation of the National Electric Code developed by IEEE and others. There ought to be a protocol. Well, there is a protocol, and that is called the Malibu Protocol, which was developed by my legal colleagues, which is a fire safety protocol adopted by Malibu County City. They passed a resolution, and that can be amplified. Now, I should understand also that the insurance companies are retreating rapidly. The cost of insurance is not affordable for most people now, and fire insurance in these areas is not available at all. And so we have a huge equity, practical, infrastructural issue. And we do have laws on the books. For example, the National Environmental Policy Act at the federal level in the United States. In California and other parts of the country, we have something like the California Environmental Quality Act, which is exactly the right remedy. In other words, these are planning statutes that say that local boards and city councils and boards of supervisors and zoning commissions need to inform themselves and develop a systematic approach to planning, which accounts for wildfire risks and comes up with sensible ways to coordinate their decisions. So my first point here is from inside as a lawyer, the infrastructure is not moving in a balanced direction. It's not as though wireless is inherently evil. In fact, it is in the paramount interest of the wireless industry as well as the optical fiber industry that the infrastructure have integrity and that it be integrally resilient. And what I'm saying is because of poor planning, they're working in opposite directions. Take the emphasis on electric vehicles. It doesn't appear that anybody has assessed the wildfire risks of electric vehicle or autonomous vehicle infrastructure. So there's a critical need for leadership at the local level, I agree, critical need for collaboration, critical need to bring data, real data, to policymakers. And we have a body of law that really can achieve the wise and sane balance. So that's the first observation. The second is that how do we collaborate? Well, I have produced a course based on about 30 years of experience called Resilient Communities, and it has the following features. One is it It begins at the personal level, because that's where most people have some level of measure of control over. How do you build your personal integral resilience? Now, most thinking about resilience is how to bounce back. But why do we bounce back to something that's already problematic? We want to take adversity and turn it to advantage. So how do we bounce forward? How do we take difficulties and challenges, turn them into opportunities? That's the art of integral resilience, and I maintain it as a core life competency. Second of all, how do we measure it? So here's where subjective variables and quantitative metrics come into play. So we developed a way at any level, individual, team, cohort, organization, community, bioregion, that you can develop, you can identify and measure and track the level of integral resilience, the capacity to turn adversity. Now, once you have a system that's developing integral resilience, you have a very strong weather vane on risk. Because the more integrally resilient a system, the more attuned it is, the more it sees the big picture, the more it sees at the periphery, and the more accurately it can make effective and wise decisions. Now, you could say, well, it's all subjective. What value does it have? Well, what I argue is the more integrally resilient you become, the less diluted you are. And therefore, you make more accurate decisions because you're more grounded. You're not tossed around by emotions, and you have a clearer of it. Now, we developed, in addition to the tools and metrics, because as they say, the course begins with the individual, then goes to teams, then goes to organizations, and then looks at communities. And we have very practical applications, like how can our goal would be 10 communities across the country this year to adapt the Malibu Safety Protocol and other programs. They all work together to share their learning and knowledge. After that, once we build that precedent, 10% of the country followed the following year by 25%. So we will have, in the area at least of wildfire risk associated with electric wildfire, infrastructure, a body of experience on how communities led by, I call them synergistic resilient leaders. That's another theme that was mentioned earlier. Leadership is critical here, and it's grassroots leadership and a new kind of leadership, not top-down command and control, but leaders who understand collaboration. This is the key. This is a whole body of knowledge we build into the course, and we actually have these kinds of leaders emerging from the communities. And then the next is AI. So AI is a really fascinating area. Before the advent, which we just heard a few days ago about GPT 4.0, which knocks everybody's socks off, we developed a number of Chat GPT 4 applications. For example, we combed all the wisdom of all cultures and all traditions and put it into an app. It's called our Wisdom Resilience app. And if you wanted, pick whoever you wanted. If you wanted Lao Tzu or Martin Luther King or Mandela or Buckminster Fuller to advise you on anything related to infrastructure, with one click, you have their best thinking using our Wisdom Resilience app, which is a coach for explorers in the course. And then, of course, communities. How can we bring AI to help build integral resilience in communities? And that's our Resilience Community app. And what's absolutely staggering is take wildfire risk. You click, you're interested in wildfires, you're interested in, let's call it collaborative leadership. You pick a leading authority on the subject, and all of a sudden in 5 seconds, you get their best thinking on that issue. And then if you want to spend another 3 seconds, you say, give me a business plan, give me a research plan. And it produces a research plan in 3 seconds. So I'm not saying that's the end of the story. What I'm saying is to have something, that capacity right next to you gets you half the way. It saves weeks of work and so forth, and it's interactive. Now, all of this can be upgraded, as we have just done yesterday, onto GPT 4.0. And that, as I said, complete game changer, because now you can have the capacity literally in real time to be dialoguing with your wise mentor, that even has a sense of humor, and it has an anthropomorphic voice, and it's like a key player in this ongoing inquiry. So I'm excited about the AI. I think that there is a way to bring the skills of collaboration and leadership, this algorithm of integral resilience, into a program where large numbers of people, perhaps working together with Sharif and Jeff and Tracy and Monty together, because this course is intended to be open to collaboration. It's not that Julian Gresser's got all answers. No, I'm trying to stimulate a conversation. Sheridan and Fred have already contributed, and we can do this together and develop a body of knowledge that large number of students and professionals, government officials can all work together around really focused issues and challenges. So that's about what I want to say, except for one last caveat. We have found, at least in my area, and I established a group called the Broadband International Legal Action Network. And we're a public interest group. We bring cases, educational programs, such as the program I urge you to have a look at on Monday. It's at noon to 2 o'clock. And we have the leading experts in the field from different areas, including fire chiefs, who are putting their sense. Now, I just want to say in the last point, these issues are overwhelming for local communities, and it comes at just the wrong time. I mean, in Malibu, for example, the staff didn't cooperate in the beginning with their own resolution. And why is that? Is that because the staff is evil? No, it's because there are budgetary cuts. These fire departments in these communities are being cut back. They don't even have money for the fuel for the engines. It's really important for communities to work together to fund these critical instrumentalities so they can do their work. So this is true. The communities have responsibilities. It's not just the telecoms have responsibility. Everybody has responsibility. So the point is that there is a huge amount of lethargy in this country. There are huge forces against what we're talking about. This is a very complex set of issues. Most people don't have bandwidth. They have enough trouble worrying about if they put food on their plate or how to attend to their jobs. And so there's a lot of despair in this country and a huge incentive fostered by the government not to know. There's an ignorance imperative on these issues. It is dangerous to open your eyes and open your hearts. And what we're trying to do is address that issue as best we can. And that expresses itself in denial. You know, I've heard very intelligent people said to me, one colleague of mine, this whole climate thing is hoax.
Hey, Julian, on that downward note, may we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Let me just interject a couple of comments before I ask Sharif to weigh in. I should have noted the locations of all our panelists. Sharif is in Dhaka in Bangladesh. Jeff is in Austin, Texas. Sheridan in San Francisco. Julian in Santa Barbara, California. Trace and Monty are in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and fire is a problem here. Especially last year, a fire that the feds started, the so-called controlled burn that was anything but controlled. Other communities are facing floods rather than fires, and I suppose eventually we'll turn our attention to those communities too. One of my colleagues and I are trying to work off of an IEEE paper that we published that will generate a more quantitative measure of community resilience to complement the subjectively generated measure that Julian talked to us about. And a couple of our panelists have mentioned Technopolis, and this is an idea that originated with Sheridan and picked up by George Kosmetsky and myself way back when. And we promoted this worldwide with great success over 30 years. And yet those 30 years also gave us the opportunity to notice the limitations of the Technopolis idea. There's a lot of growth in jobs, a lot of growth in wealth, but displaced communities, high rents that drove the artists and musicians out of town, choking traffic. And so Sheridan's Gaiapolis concept is meant to remedy those ills and to supplant the Technopolis concept and make it more human-centered so that traditional neighborhoods and communities are not displaced. And I am not an architect, but one of the things that has been preying on my mind about the human-centeredness of Gaiapolis, and Julian has talked about people finding jobs that are fulfilling for them rather than oppressive. And this has to do with architecture. I saw that Austin had grown hugely with no architectural controls. And what is the consequence of building buildings and building rooms that are simply boxes to keep people in, boxes to store people in? This is something that we need to address, and I'll give you a personal reason why. My daughter graduated in engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. Decided no, she didn't want to spend the rest of her career sitting in a cubicle staring at a computer screen working as an engineer. What did she do? She went to law school. Now she has a big office with a fine view of the United States Capitol and a computer screen. But, you know, the idea of stuffing people into cubicles in steel and glass towers with no architectural distinctiveness, it's something that we can't continue to do. And one of the first culprits in Austin was the physics, math, astronomy building on the UT campus that popped up around the year 1971. Truly a terrible place to work in. And I think it was a time of budgetary constraint, and the regents of the University of Texas decided they couldn't afford to have tile roofs and Spanish colonial architecture anymore. And the consequences were not good in terms of student health and faculty happiness. Okay. Now I want to turn it over to Sharif. Sharif comes to us from Dhaka. He runs the World Talent Economy Forum. You've seen their name scrolling across the bottom of our StreamYard screen. And he has just launched a WTEF institute that has very ambitious education and training plans across Asia. So, Sharif, please take it.
Thank you, Professor. Very interesting discussions, and especially I learned a lot from today's discussions. And before this show, I get the pitch deck from Tando website, and that was very interesting learning for me. And that's why I developed this World Talent Economic Forum. We want to minimize the gap in between developed nations and developing nations. And most important factor is that 6 billion people, 85% of the global population live in emerging economy. For you, maybe 100 million people we want to train with modern science, engineering, and technology through World Talent Economic Forum. It's ambitious, but it's very possible because I grow in an emerging economy. I understand the developed nations' cultures and values and everything. So when you discuss about this Gaiapolis concept, and when you discuss about sustainability, climate change, and resilient, all of the issues, I think I can add something from emerging economy, because I also work with one of the real estate corporations, and Professor Fred Philip visit Bangladesh, and we are working with decentralizations. And decentralization is very important for city development, urban planning. For me, village development is very important. Few area we are focusing right now. Number one, affordable housing, because we are not rich like North Americans, like you people. We have many people, those who live in a grassroots level, and they are untouched. Secondly, for climate change, right now we have heat wave in Dhaka. In front of me, I saw many people struggling, and who actually taking this responsibility when we develop this big infrastructure, cities, and everything. But we need to care about our nature. That's why I already published a book on jute productions. It actually helped us a lot it helped us a lot to solve climate oriented problem. Another interesting aspect, always the Western world means, look, we have very good natures. Let's say Bangladesh has Sundarban, mangrove conservations, and advanced agricultures. Not only Bangladesh, I know India, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, all of them has some interesting things. So through this Gaiapolis concept, if you add something from developing nations, maybe it will be helpful for rural development. So I believe that Gaiapolis definitely very good concept. But if we want to engage with more peoples, if you want to engage with grassroots peoples, you have to focus on decentralizations, microfinance, women empowerment. Even though we are discussing about AI, data, and everything, for developing world, maybe it's not a big issues. Our big issues, how we can get a affordable place where we can sleep, how we get food, how we can save our natural beauty and everything. Climate change is everywhere, and it's actually very big problems. I attend in the COP28 in Dubai, and that time I find that there are a lot of big commitments, but some point it's actually unrealistic. So Tando can play a very good role. They can work with the grassroots levels people. Also, they can work with the emerging economy government. Already, I invite Professor Fred Philip, and I want to invite you all in very interesting conference what we will organize in different times. This way, we can collaborate, and you can teach our government officials, our largest corporations, or our academia, and this way we can help each others. Affordable housing, this is very very important, because I know in Dhaka city many people sleep in the street. I know in USA also have same problems, but things is that how we can make it affordable. Government has to provide subsidy, the donor agency has to come and join in these ecosystems. On the other hand, large corporation, they also support this initiative. By this way, I believe we can solve this problem. Why don't the venture capital come and they engage with this microfinance initiative? This may help us a lot. Jute production. Jute is a very important aspect for modern world, but somehow we always Western world bring lot of technology, but we try to uh, destroy the traditional things. This is not the proper way. I always believe the corporation, especially the multinational corporation, they have to do more research on emerging economy and the good things, eco-friendly things, sustainable things they can bring from Bangladesh or from emerging economy. Mangrove is a very beautiful things, very beautiful things. It's actually protecting and restoring this mangrove ecosystem is essential for coastal resilience and biodiversity conservation. Even though India and Bangladesh, we have mangrove, but I believe that we can do more research on that particular area, and Western world can do more research, and we can innovate, and we can help each other by transferring this mangrove to the Western world. Advanced agriculture, this is very important for me, because I believe technology do not have value if people do not have housing, do not have food, do not have clean drinking waters. So advanced agriculture practice such as precision farming, organic method, water conservations, these are the very important aspects for us. And how actually World Talent Economic Forum doing work, we are engaging with university grant commissions. We are working with different university, school, college, grassroots level NGO, and government agency. And by this way, we developing the community. And especially, let's say, today's dialogue is very, very important for us, because we have, let's say, 150 university, but we do not have engagement with modern science, engineering, and technology. So Tando can help us a lot. And most important thing is that we need more partnership. We need more engagement. Not only this dialogue, why don't we publish some papers? Why don't we translate it and publish in the national newspaper in Bangladesh or in Malaysia or in Indonesia? This is very much important. And most important factor is measuring impact. So I request all of the global people through you, because you have more credibility compared to me. I'm very small man, but I have a big dream. So why don't we impact the whole ecosystems, figure out the whole ecosystem, that how we can work together, how we can learn from Western world, and Western world can learn from our grassroots level peoples, and we can publish the new knowledge, new research papers, and new things. That's why I developing this ecosystem. And this ecosystem believe, with the help of affordable housing, jute productions, mangrove, advanced agriculture, and definitely AI playing a major role, and microfinance and women empowerment can give us a sustainable and livable place. So let's work together, and do not forget about 85% global population, 6 billion people. The more you engage with this community, you get more success. And definitely Gaiapolis is very, very important. And I want to add 1 and 2 points with this Gaiapolis concept. Thank you, Professor Fred Philip, to give me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sharif. You've given us an opportunity also to work together through these video casts. Now, of course, we need engineers if the world is continuing to be innovative, but if all we have to offer engineers is a cubicle and a screen, we're not going to have the technical workforce that we need. So, Sharif, I think you've just given us an idea if we can send those engineers out on internships to countries like yours. It'll get them out of their cubicles, and it will inspire them to a more fulfilling engineering career. Now, we like to keep these sessions to maximum an hour and a quarter. So let's go to our second round for reactions and concluding remarks, and try to make those brief. So
I have, Fred, I have a few comments on what Sharif said.
Okay, would like to go first?
I'll make it brief. So first of all, Sharif, I think there's an immediate opportunity and cautionary to help support what you're doing. I think it's marvelous. You have a very focused forum and challenges in regard to jute production and women and local empowerment. So just here are a few resources. The first is, I would welcome an opportunity to make the course available to your whole network in a structure there that's attuned to the critical issues, some of which you identified. So there is a way in which participants can learn and acquire these critical skills rapidly, measurably, and effectively. So that's the first point. Second of all, empowering is the word we use. You could be in Bangladesh, we are in Santa Barbara. Local communities empowerment is critical. I can tell you in the United States, there is a concerted effort to disempower communities by law. So there is a huge potential collision between the needs that you have identified and where legislators are going. In the United States, a critical issue is to strip away the 10th Amendment and the rights and powers and prerogatives of local communities, which have to drive this. You're correct. But the forces that be are trying to disempower local communities. Women leaders. Japan can play a critical role as an investor in Bangladesh, and we are working with the top official, whose name is Akiko Yamanaka. She's the Vice Minister for Human Security. I put the interview I did with her in the chat. You are absolutely correct that women can play an important role, new role in leadership. And the Japanese government, she's the roving ambassador for human security. And so the Japanese government, which I can help you in Bangladesh connect to, can be an important ally for what you're trying to do. affordable housing is as important in Bangladesh as it is in Santa Barbara. So you're absolutely right. And it can be a locus of innovation. Collaborative innovation is a whole separate discipline which we have deep expertise in, and we can develop collaborative innovation programs to support entrepreneurship and innovators in the very space that you're talking about. I think I'll stop there. But anyway, you're right on, and the resources right here in this Zoom call are available to you. And I think, and collaboration, it's true, some of this is online, yes, but we can accomplish an enormous lot online without having people an expense to travel all over the world. And with this new ChatGPT 4.0, we can easily adapt it. I'm talking in a month for the critical issues that you have. We have the technical team, the AI team, to do it.
Thanks, Julian. Sheridan?
No, yes. Actually, I agree with everybody. And I guess the biggest metaphor that I see is that we need to move from what I call design over nature, which began with colonization and industrialization and Technopolis for the last 500 years, where we destroyed everything, the nature, environment, biodiversity, peoples. We have to get away from what we call in urban planning the bulldozer mentality by the elite, ignoring everybody in a process. So we need to move to a grassroots, bottom-up, networked, and the only way to do that is technology, AI, and all the systems that we're presenting. And so we need to design with nature. And Gaiapolis, the biggest difference is that Technopolis was human-centric, top-down, corporate, hardware-driven. Gaiapolis is what more nature, humans with nature. In other words, indigenous people. So we have to figure out, study, and learn from the global south and the indigenous people. How in the world did they survive for millennia living with nature, which is more powerful than humans? And so we need to figure out, how do we integrate that traditional knowledge with a very complex, mega city. And that's the hard part. Anybody could live in a village with 20 people. That's easy. How do you do with 20 million people, or like Tokyo, 40 million people? That's the hard part. And so with the world urbanizing very quickly, we're going to have like 55% by the end of the century. How do we do that? And we need to do villages. So in Gaiapolis, we're looking not just at the city itself. I'm looking at bioregions, because in urban planning we always think of bioregions. In other words, the region is the lungs, the food basket to provide the cities. Otherwise, they'll die. The cities will die. So you need to integrate the two, and that's where I think Julian, working with bioregions and watersheds and different groups, and looking at the electrical grid in terms of the bioregions, really important because of all the flashpoints that we have between infrastructure and nature. So I think we need to do that. But the other thing I do appreciate, and I wrote about it, because of the 500 years of top-down planning and I call bulldozer mentality, we need to totally rethink and reverse most of our values over the next century. And I wrote a book, chapter 7. We have to rewire everything, our minds, our societies, everything. I'm at the point we're going now is we'll destroy the earth. So unless we do what all of you are saying across the world, it's not going to happen. And you can't do it now. Fortunately, in urban planning, we know one thing: you can change a nation in 5 years. 5 years. And the way we do it in urban planning is we work with the children, because the children are open and naive and very curious. We work with the school systems. And as soon as you work with the children, the mothers and the fathers and the grandparents are very concerned about them. They're saying, what are you doing with our children? We need to be involved. So we get a multi-generational collaboration right off the bat. If you talk to old people, they don't involve the children. They ignore them. If you talk to the young children, the parents get involved and the adults. So what you can do is community, multi-generation collaboration to solve problems together instead of against each other. And I think we did that all the time. We have like expos, build and show and tell, and we'd bring in the television cameras and interview the children and their parents and grandma. So it becomes a community-driven thing, which is missing today. Everything's very corporate, and so you don't see real human beings. Which is what Tracy, Jeffrey, and Sharif are talking about, and Julia. So I think those are my. Basically, we need to totally rethink how we build cities. I mean, I'll be frank, totally rethink, and it has to be human-centric, people with nature, not over nature, at the grassroots, and using the state-of-the-art technologies to figure it out. Because we don't have 50 years to do it. We have to educate everybody in the next 2 or 3 years. How do you educate 8 billion people using phones and internet and meetings? That's the hard part.
Sharif, let me just jump in.
Julian, we really don't have time. Can we move on, please? Jeff, the Tondo Fellows have been talking about the importance of storytelling in conveying the kinds of things that Sheridan and Sharif have been talking about. And you have indicated you're working with movie producers on some things, but on what things? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I could definitely share information after this as well. But Sheridan made a great point. He talks about how this top down, like let's just use the example of interstate highways. Interstate highways was a top down. It basically created an incredible network of production and opportunity for the United States, but it also created massive scars and broke up communities at the same time as the interstate highways were built. So I think Gaiapolis is going to be a key thrust in helping society understand that this new digital infrastructure that allows us to get back to building the physical world will allow much more holistic approach at the community and really even at the neighborhood level within cities. And now how does that message get out? We've in studying past initiatives, you think about what the United States did in the 40s, 50s, 60s, with everything from the gigantic water, the dams that were put in place, the roadways that were built, even we had the Manhattan Project at that time. The movie industry was heavily leaned on to help tell the story and excite the general citizen about the opportunities for jobs and what this does for the future. So if you think about electrification, rural electrification, everybody assumes everybody wanted electricity. That was not the case. There was a large preponderance, especially rural communities, that did not want electricity, and they thought it was something that they didn't need. And Westinghouse had to work with the Hollywood to help explain why electricity was powerful and why it was valuable to them. Same thing with interstate highways. The movie industry had to be used to help tell the story of what interstate highways were going to do and the productive qualities it would provide, the tourism it provide. And then the one that I think all of us have experienced is JFK used Hollywood more than any other president to cast the vision and the opportunity of going to the moon. And he did that by getting out media and telling these stories, which basically inspired a kid in a cornfield to deviate from becoming his father's son building in the farm to becoming a world famous engineer, getting a man on the moon. And we're doing that same thing. We see the story of Gaiapolis is heavily intertwined with what we're doing with intelligent infrastructure. But the message of what intelligent infrastructure is going to be the key driver to help people understand what can be done and then why do they care.
Thank you, Jeff. Trace and Monty, you're on.
May I say something? I'm sorry. I'm so happy what Jeff just said. And actually, I grew up in Bulgaria, completely different lifestyle, different cultural background. And for me, I experienced a lot of cultural shocks coming here. But one question that I always had was what happened with the kind of very strong movement in the 60s of people starting thinking in different way. And I asked this question many times, friends here in US, what it is, what was the cause that, let's call it, the hippie culture disappeared. And my joke always, I blame Disney for this. I mean, I strongly believe how much brainwashing occurs from TV, advertisement, movie industry, and Disney for me is, I apologize, personal thing. I blame Disney for everything.
So I'll just add a little bit of appreciation for everything everybody said. I don't know if anybody mentioned urban heat islands and heat waves and the imminent huge death potential from those as well. I believe in Europe, hundreds of people died from the most recent heat waves there last summer and the summer before. So it's also something that we really need to keep on the radar, and something that we want to evaluate with our data analysis is which parts of the cities are hottest and how to ameliorate some of that.
So I would like to just say that briefly, that what Jeffrey and Monty and Tracy have said, that there's a common theme which has to do with values, evolutionary values. That comes to the storytelling and so forth. That's the critical issue, because there are huge forces against what we're trying to do. One is a wonderful book by Amitav Ghosh called The Nutmeg's Curse. This whole idea of sort of extractive capitalism, the World Economic Forum, and all these institutions, the critical issues, I think, of the age are what are the values that we all are going to live by. Gaiapolis is a statement, it's a value statement. And this is an issue that's not really recognized, although the theme of economic and environmental justice runs through everything we're talking about. So anyway, wherever one has a chance to at least consider that, what in Gaiapolis offers an opportunity to evolve at the deepest level, which has to do with the values that we live by. And the dominant value today is might makes right. It's essentially devoid of conscience. These are the forces that are causing a lot of the problems that we face. But I'm an optimist, and I think that this forum today offers a pathway, particularly at the local level, where we do have some large measure of control.
Sharif, how about your closing remark?
Thank you, Professor. This is excellent discussion. We need more discussion like this, because the global community need to learn more about Western world thought. And from this dialogue, I learned how we can utilize technology. And definitely, I want to share a good news that World Talent Economic Forum, we are closely working with University Grant Commissions. We have a project called HIT, World Bank and University Grant Commission closely working together. And I also request University Grant Commissions and World Bank to collaborate with Tando. And I'm sure through these projects, we can engage with around 4.5 million people right the way. And we can train people, and definitely it's economical viable projects. So I request Tando President organize this kind of sessions more. This is extremely important. University has to learn more things from this kind of dialogues. Government can learn many things, and we can form an institution, and we can invite more emerging economy people to your institutions. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Sharif. Trace mentioned heat islands, and of course that's closely related to the question of fire risk. And I had sent Julian a couple days ago a scenario-based way of predicting fire risk, the fire damage risk. You didn't reply, Julian. It didn't mention the cell towers, so I suspect maybe you didn't like.
No. I'm sorry. I'm going to post it. I'm going to post it today. I'll invite everybody to join this forum, which looks exactly at the issue of how do we go about measure the risks of electric fires, not necessarily only cell tower, but PG&D was not a cell tower fire, power utility fire. But this is a whole new frontier. I asked the fire chief in Santa Barbara. He said all fires are important. I asked him about electric fire. He said it's not even on our radar. And so, we're talking about an electric infrastructure. We got to pay attention to fire.
I'll jump in really quickly on for young people. The fastest way to change the world is to gamify it. We call it simulation and virtual reality. And so gaming is a way to learn how to use the AI, IoT, VR for uses in climate action enterprise. It's the same function on the gaming engines. It's just a different terminology. So it's gaming is a dirty word in enterprise, and vice versa. In entertainment, it's simulation is interesting, but gaming is more fun. So one of the ways you could gamify it is contests. So you take the wildfire, electrical fires, and you challenge all the children to gather all the data to see where the flashpoints are and the dangers in their neighborhoods. I mean, and then and just show it on the maps. So we have all the data. We just don't use it at all. So one of the ideas is I call crowd swarming with billions of children using the technology, gathering the data, and showing it. And I think that will really say it to most people, because Google did that 10 years ago to save the Amazon forest. They gave smartphones to stop the illegal logging, and they saved the forest for the tribe. So, and it took the children 5 minutes to learn how to use the smartphones, and they taught the elders. So you can do it very quickly if you want to, but it's just a matter of, do you want to do it at all? I mean, that's the issue.
Yeah, gamifying complements storytelling just beautifully. And although I might have wanted this session to focus more closely on data and analysis and data sharing amongst our panelists, we drifted off into some big issues, and it was very enjoyable. I will share with all the panelists everyone's contact information, so that discussion of data types and analyses can happen offline. I want the audience to know that this is the first time several of our panelists have met each other, and we were exceedingly polite to each other, thanking each other and telling each other what wonderful contributions. So forgive us, audience, because I know the audience doesn't want to hear us congratulating ourselves. The audience really wants to hear the substantive contributions. So next time we get together, we will already be well acquainted, and we will focus more on the substantive. So we're right on time here at 1 hour and a quarter, and I really thank everybody for carving out their Saturday morning or whatever time it is in Bangladesh. Sharif, thanks for spending the time with us. I agree, it's been a terrific session, and we'll have lots of offline follow-up to do. So thanks, everyone, and good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.